traders, Raghee here, and in this update, let's talk about a very real situation that a lot of traders and investors, quite frankly, run into, and that is a limited amount of capital to deploy and therefore a limited amount of places to deploy it in. Now, some of us don't have that issue at all. We see a trade, we can take it. The risk associated with that trade will not push our accounts anywhere near risk of ruin in terms of too many positions and having to choose what trade is affordable, how many trades are too much. For some traders, that's not an issue at all. But I'm going to assume that many of you, not all of you, listening to me right now, watching this video, have to be selective about your trades. And there's two reasons we need to be selective. On one hand, there's the selectivity of something more nuanced, like why I recommended KRE over IWM, but both were valid. This was a trade that I set up in the closing session in the futures and options room Wednesday afternoon. But then there's things that I'll say, like avoid for now the tech narrative, QQQ, XLK, and focus on XLC. This is selection that comes down to relative outperformance. What is going to perform better? So take a look at KRE here on the daily time frame and the pullback we bought into on this dark blue candle, and take a look at IWM. My feeling is that KRE is a better structured market and therefore lower risk, higher probability, and better chance of follow through. My expectation of XLC to outperform, say, the NASDAQ futures comes down to the NASDAQ is choppy, broke its trend, it's having a great day today, that's fine, but XLC has been easier to maintain some dip buys, and it's a relative outperformer. So at some point, we have to think about markets that we don't want to trade or we can't trade, or at very least, we shouldn't prioritize or we can't prioritize, right? So what are you going to focus on? That's a really important part, because you can't focus on everything, because that's actually not focus at all. Let's bring this back to the place that I have continued to say we want to put our emphasis on. It's not about catching a move that suddenly is playing, kind of an accelerated rally or that's having one good session. It's about the continuity of a trend. And that conversation is related to probability. Probability is going to take us right back to, is it more likely that the Dow will continue higher in a more reliable and in a more predictable way? Or do I want to take my chances that suddenly the tech market has started to attract buyers and that Tesla is actually not going to be moving choppy and lower, or that Microsoft and Apple are finally going to resume their uptrend? Those are big ifs. But to say that IYT is likely going to head higher, that XLI is likely going to head higher, and that the YM futures via DIA is likely going to head higher, those are three long positions that have higher probability and therefore are also in my in two books. We have the long Dow in our futures room, and we have long Dow and long industrials in the Sector Secrets Mastery. So I'm playing probabilities here. I'm not necessarily trying to guess at which market might have one good session. I want lots of good sessions. I'm greedy, right? In the best way a trend follower needs to be. So when we think about where we should focus and what we should focus on, it also means that some things are going to be left behind. Some markets are just not going to get the same amount of attention because, frankly, their underlying structure doesn't deserve it. Sure, QQQ and NASDAQ futures are having a great day, but KRE is going to be a more predictable, reliable performer when you look at session to session, not one single session. Now, if we talk about one single session, and in the premium video, I'm going to dive into a lot of what we saw from a day trading perspective, because from a day trading perspective, the NASDAQ was a nice trade, a really nice trade. And so we want to take a look at NASDAQ, we want to take a look at the S&P from an intraday perspective and take a look at some of the breach retreats and the very clear trends that we had once it turned 10 o'clock to stay bullish and to watch the market surf the waves, surf the prop dots. It's a bullish Friday. I don't want to say it's good. I don't want to say it's bad. We want to focus on structure. And if we focus on structure, it'll very organically put you into the higher probability markets. I'll see you in the next update.
Without simpler trading, I could not have financial independence.
This is one of the best investments I ever made in my life.
It's helping me find consistency.
It's one of the things that won me